Welcome back, students. In this part, we shall be looking on to the profit maximizing condition of a monopolist, and we shall try to see under what conditions it maximizes its profit. Since a monopoly firm is the only firm in the market, it is the market itself, and as a result, it is a price setter, and it sets a price and output that maximizes its economic profit. So now we shall look at the profit maximizing conditions of a monopoly firm when they take their decisions in taking into consideration both the cost and the revenue as their output varies. So we have just seen that the total revenue of a monopoly firm is maximized at a point where the marginal revenue is zero. We have also seen that the total revenue of a monopoly firm rises at a decreasing rate. So although it produces more output and generates more revenue, but that revenue generation occurs at a reduced rate. Now we shall try to understand under what conditions the monopoly firm maximizes its profit. So we go back to our previous example where we were considering this haircut salon and we considered it as a monopoly firm. So the price and the quantities are depicted on the first two columns. Then we have the total revenue and followed by the marginal revenue on the third and the fourth column. Then on the fifth column, we have the total cost that is incurred by the monopoly firm, and along with that is the marginal cost. The last column here is the total profit that is generated by a monopoly firm. So this total profit is basically the total amount of revenue that is generated by a monopoly firm minus the total cost that it generates. So in order to maximize profit, a monopoly firm will thus look at the output at which this profit is maximized. So if you look at this table, you can see that all the things are like the previous slide. So up until this, we have seen that with the reduction in the price, the output rises, so does the total revenue, and the marginal revenue also rises, but at a decreasing rate. Now, if this is the total cost that is incurred by a monopoly firm for producing output, say for example, when it is not producing anything, in that case, the total cost is 20. So you might be wondering, if it doesn't produce anything, then why is this total cost 20 here? So the reason is, so remember, we have a fixed cost when we operate in a business. So maybe the salon that we are considering have to give rent to the apartment where it is operating. So in that case, it has to give that rent to its owner, and that is why we have $20 here as its total cost, which is the fixed cost regardless of the units that it sells. And if you consider at this particular point, in that case, the profit would be minus 20 because, and that would be a negative profit because it doesn't produce or generate any revenue, but it incurs a sufficient cost. As a result, the profit is negative. So this salon will definitely look for more customers and thrive to sell and do more haircuts. So in order to do so, it reduces the price to attract its customers. So when the price is reduced to $80, the client demand rises to 1, with the total revenue being 18. Now the monopoly firm here, the salon, starts generating profit because the total revenue is 18, so is the marginal revenue, and here the total cost will be 21, and if you take the difference between total revenue and the total cost, then the profit would be negative 3. So here the salon is still in negative profit or in loss. However, the loss is minimized as compared to when it wasn't selling anything. So which means that selling and producing more is going to generate more profit for this firm. Now look at the second unit of a haircut that generates $32 total revenue. and with a marginal revenue of 14 and a total cost of 24, the profit will now be $8. So now the salon is generating positive profit finally. Now the question is, how far will it go, or how long will it increase its profit to increase its output to generate profit, or what is exactly the number of haircuts that it needs to sell in order to maximize profit. And that, so to find that, we need to go beyond selling more number of haircuts. So when the salon decides to do 3 haircuts, the total revenue would be 42. With the total cost 30, it will generate a $12 profit. Going beyond that, if it sells 4 haircuts, the total revenue is 48. With the total cost 40, the profit will be $8. So the profit, however, is still positive, but compared to the previous situation, now its profit has reduced from 12 to 8, which means that producing more output will not bring any benefit for this salon. Rather, it is better not to produce or sell anything more than these 3 haircuts, because that is the maximum profit that it can generate considering its total revenue and total cost. So the profit maximizing point will thus occur at 3 haircuts, and the total profit in that particular case would be $12. Another way to look at the profit maximizing condition is to look at the marginal revenue and marginal cost and compare these two. Now, if you look at the fourth and the sixth column, we shall see that the marginal revenue increases but at a decreasing rate as the firm produces more output, and the marginal cost starts increasing as the salon decides to produce more haircuts. Now, as long as the marginal revenue is greater than the marginal cost, increasing output will bring positive profit to the firm, because the extra revenue that is generated by producing an extra output would be more than the extra cost of producing that output. So you can see that if the salon produces from 2 to 3 haircuts, in that case its marginal revenue is 10 and its marginal cost is 6, which means marginal revenue is greater than the marginal cost. As a result, the salon generates a positive profit. Going beyond this point, when 4 haircuts are sold, in that case the marginal revenue falls to 6 and marginal cost climbs up to 10, which means marginal revenue is less than the marginal cost. As a result, the profit that is generated by this salon would be reducing to $8. So a golden rule to look at the profit maximizing condition for any firm is to look at its marginal revenue and the marginal cost, and the profit maximization will always occur at a point when marginal revenue will be exactly equal to marginal cost. These two graphs here represent the profit maximizing situation of a monopoly firm, and this is taken from your textbook, which is figure number 13.4, and here we'll be looking at the same haircut salon and see how it generates profit by producing at profit maximizing output. Now, the first graph is showing the relation between the total revenue and the total cost, and the difference between the total revenue and the total cost is the total profit that is generated by the haircut salon. Now you can see that the difference between total revenue and the total cost is maximized at this quantity, which is 3, and at that quantity the profit is 12, which is the maximum number of profit at the saloon generates, as we have seen in the previous table. Now, although you know that being a monopoly allows a firm to charge as high a price as is possible. However, if you look at the second graph, you can see that the highest possible price that a monopolist can charge its customer, or here the salon, is $20 per haircut. But if it does so, in that case, it will not be able to sell any amount of service at all. So charging a highest price will not be suitable. For this reason, the monopoly, like any other firm, will always try to produce at a point where its marginal revenue will be exactly equal to marginal cost, because producing up until this point ensures that the monopolist is not making any loss in additional cost. So for a monopoly firm, since the monopoly is the market itself, so the demand curve will represent the market demand curve, and the price that a monopoly generates charges for its service will be given by this demand curve here. So what a monopoly does is, like any other firm, it produces at the profit maximizing output, which occurs at the intersection of the marginal revenue and the marginal cost curve, but it then charges the price according to the market demand curve. So it tries to see that if it produces 3 haircuts in our case, then what is the price that the customers are willing to give? And here it is derived again from the demand curve, which is $14 a haircut. So the salon then would be producing 3 haircuts at max and would be charging $14 for each of the haircut in order to be in profit. And how do we calculate the profit then? So we all know that the profit is calculated through the difference between the price that a seller gets minus the average cost that it incurs for producing and selling its good. So here the haircut salon charges $14 for each haircut, and for to provide the service it incurs $10 on average as its cost. So the profit per unit would be then the difference between the price it charges minus its average cost, which is $4. So $4 a haircut, which means that since it produces 3 haircuts, its total profit generated through providing 3 haircuts would be equal to 4 times 3. So 4 is the per unit profit, and since it produces 3 haircuts, so 4 times 3, that would be equals to 12, is its economic profit. Now, we have seen in the perfect competition that a perfect competitive market cannot charge higher than its marginal revenue or its marginal cost, because there are competitors, and if a single firm charges high price, then it loses its entire market share to its competitors. Unlike the perfect competition, here you can see in the monopoly, the price is well above the marginal revenue, right? So here the marginal revenue for these 3 haircut is somewhat around $5 approximately, but the price for that same unit is 14. And since marginal revenue equals to marginal cost, which means that the marginal cost for a monopolist is also lower to its price, or in other words, price for a monopolist product is higher than its marginal cost, which allows the monopoly to make and generate positive profit. In addition to that, since there are barriers that prevent new firms to enter into the business, so a monopoly thus can charge a high price for an indefinite period and still be in business by making positive economic profit.